This is going to be a film study to examine the recent play of Roquan Smith, who's been extremely decisive and precise with his reads in the last 2 weeks against the Bears and the Dolphins. The defense, of course, playing a much better brand of football, allowed 39 points in the last 3 games. Roquan's been a huge part of that, along with Kyle Hamilton set to the field as the dedicated nickel. Roquan has 24 tackles in the last 2 wins against the Bears and the Dolphins. He's really been spectacular pairing those two guys set to the field consistently together. They basically act like a deterrent against the run and the pass, and I think that you see evidence in the Bears and the Dolphins game that play callers recognize that. An overwhelming number of plays run into the boundary, basically away from those guys. Individually, Roquan has been, I think, against the run, very balanced and smart. Constant or consistent arrival at the point of attack on time, basically meeting the running back at the line of scrimmage, and I'll give you some examples of that in this video. In addition, the criticism of Roquan in recent years of his pass coverage, man, he's been really sharp and positioning himself well in zone coverage, and even against the Dolphins played some man-to-man, I think 3 times against Devin Achane on 3rd downs. He did miss a huge opportunity for a statement against the Dolphins. A 4th quarter interception in his hands. He's unable to control it. I will show that play as well. I think his pass drops have been spectacular the last 2 weeks against the Bears and Dolphins, and a significant amount of the plays I show you here is going to focus on that dynamic. Going to start out with one of those aforementioned plays. I've actually covered this in the Malachi Starks and the Kyle Hamilton video, but it's pretty obvious this is an important development for the Ravens on their 3rd down coverage. Essentially, they're putting Roquan Smith at times into the boundary as the will linebacker. He's going to cover Achane, into the boundary. They've, in my opinion, the Ravens being able to operate out of a too high structure on 3rd downs is important. This is their, one of their kind of new look dime features, where Roquan, Simpson, Van Noy, and Hamilton are all packaged on the field together. I love the look. In terms of our personnel being versatility, Roquan having to play some man-to-man against the running back at times, is an interesting development because of the presence of Simpson being there. But teams, if you ask me, are going to continue to do what you see here, which is try to get Kyle Hamilton out of there and remove him as a potential blitzer and just basically not allow him to participate in the football play by nature of the play's design. A somewhat underrated play here by Roquan and Malachi Starks, who's lined up to his right to the field. Ravens have created this 5-3. I talked about that in the Kyle Hamilton video called the Kyle Hamilton Effect that I put out on Sunday morning. It's a pass play where Achane is going to go out into the flat. Starks is going to be the guy that makes the tackle. But what I want to focus on as we run through this a couple of times is the tight end running between those two guys. Essentially, Starks is fighting to get to the outside, and then Roquan staying balanced, reading the quarterback's eyes. You can see forcing the tight end between them such that Tua doesn't want to throw the football. They're essentially a deterrent by being in great position. And then the flip out to the flats where Starks is able to make the tackle. Achane is obviously stumbling to some extent, but still it goes down as a really nice play on the rookie's ledger. Set up a 3rd down for the Ravens where they're able to get a stop. This is the 5th possession. Later in the 2nd quarter, we're up 14-6. This is, of course, where they're going to go for it and target Achane against Kyle Hamilton. We're focusing on Roquan here. 3rd and 2 out of 11 personnel group on offense. They're trying to run the football. It's a really nice read by Roquan. Downhill, fitting underneath of Mike Green. Split zone concept. Wiggins there as well. I didn't think Wiggins had one of his better games, in some of the film that we'll show here will actually kind of display that. End zone angle of the same play, mind you. Roquan in yellow, Green in purple. Like I said, it's a 3rd and 2, preceding the failed 4th down pass to Achane. So the tight end's going to work across the formation here. So right to left for us, left to right for them. It's a split zone concept. So zone to one side, our right, as we're looking at it now, with the tight end working in the opposite direction. The idea is to give the running back the possibility to hit it front side, but also be able to wind it back underneath of that kick-out block. That's one of the reasons why sometimes you'll see the backside linebacker kind of step and then hedge in this direction, because they're trying to make themselves available for that kind of wind back, if you will, by the running back. That's totally wiped out here. Jenkins holding up at the point of attack, Jones also creating a mess of things inside. Roquan there to finish things off. You know, as the inside linebacker, sometimes you're the beneficiary of people playing things well in front of you. That's a real dynamic. And in this case, I think Green held up at the point of attack, and Travis Jones, like I said, you know, really caused a mess with the left tackle and the left guard. We're focusing on a 2-week time period where, like I said, Roquan has 24 tackles, and I think he's kind of returned to that form of playing at a really high level. So this is the win against the Bears at home. 11 personnel run game is going to be a huge factor, particularly into the boundary, and that's the dynamic that you see here. That's Kyle Hamilton set to the field as the dedicated nickel. Ojabo kind of steps down and allows himself to get pinned inside here. It's a really weird reaction, if you ask me. We're talking about right here with the left tackle, 79. Ojabo plays inside the B gap here, which, you know, perhaps that's the design of the play with Wiggins getting upfield. I'm unsure of this particular stunt that we're running. But what I do know is the tackle combos back out to Buchanan, and then Roquan fits underneath of it. Really nice read by him on a 1st and 10. You know, finish. He's definitely unblocked on the play, so, you know, that's a critical factor that allows him to flow so freely to the football and make a tackle for a short gain. He's been very balanced against the run, meaning staying square as long as possible, not being overcommitted to one side or the other, essentially reflecting the fact that the running back, or in this case the wide receiver, DJ Moore, could cut the thing back. This is a very unique run scheme. It's out of 11 personnel, and I think the running back is up here set to the side, but I could be wrong. Perhaps there's no running back on the field. Tight end in the backfield is Loveland. It looks like a read option whereby Caleb Williams is reading the edge defender up here. I think that's David Ojabo, and you just can't fool Roquan. You're not going to fool him with stuff like this where you've got a down scheme on the bottom side of our screen to Roquan's left, and then a counter with the left guard and the left tackle pulling. Because of the presence of Hamilton, the pulling offensive lineman, the second one, in fact, has to get out to Hamilton, and that leaves Roquan free once again. So the design of the defense against 11 personnel run game with 2 high safeties worked in this instance because you get an unblocked Mike linebacker. You know, Roquan's just too good to leave unblocked. He'll make that tackle pretty much every time. We're going to talk about some pass drops here and some screen work that Roquan has put in the last 2 weeks, primarily for the rest of this video. Again, back in Week 8, the win at home against the Bears. Run action by the running back. Have to illustrate and talk about the difference in reactions that you're getting from our 2 inside linebackers, but you'll notice that Hamilton is once again set to the field. We're in this 1 high safety look. Gilman has rolled up. You get this kind of like chicken with his head cut off reaction by the Will linebacker, violently stepping up. He is getting an interesting read, and I think that teams are going to do these types of things to elicit that quick reaction downhill from Buchanan. That's what he does. He's a rookie, probably understand things better at some point, but coming downhill, turning his back. Meanwhile, Roquan, calm and cool, not overcommitting. Once he saw the play fake and then Williams looking in this direction, he identified the receiver, waited for the ball to be thrown, broke on it quickly. Multiple instances of this have occurred. This type of play, this dynamic, has occurred in the last couple of weeks. Basically, play action or a pass concept, and Roquan doesn't get too much depth, but he comes downhill and makes the tackle quickly after the catch. Very reminiscent, if you ask me, of the way he played against the Cleveland Browns at home in our win in Week 2. Same play from the end zone angle, mind you. Running back, play action fake, tackle stepping out. You know, not a real decisive run read, if you ask me, from the steps here, but Buchanan is just reading the window, seeing the window open, getting downhill, obviously too quickly. Roquan sees everything and reacts a whole lot better, obviously. Because of the scheme, we've essentially voided a zone. I'm talking about where Buchanan would be in this area here. We voided a zone. This receiver kind of fits underneath. I think it's Zacchaeus. Quick tackle by Roquan, who's got great instincts, but he's also extremely intelligent. He's not the force of nature, probably, that he was 3 or 4 years ago, but consistently putting himself in position to make tackles, especially against the pass, for short gains like this one. We're in our dime structure on a 3rd and 8 against the Bears. Roquan is mugged up. Kyle Hamilton is the dime linebacker set to the boundary. think that's Marlin as the nickel set to the field. Route concept, motion by the outside guy, and he's going to kind of sit down between the hash and the top of the numbers, essentially the hook to curl zone. Number 3 guy is going to run an occupy route. He's trying to basically clear Roquan out of there, possibly, if it's a Tampa 2. Give Caleb Williams a quite easy read. Gilman sits down in the middle of the field on that route there, the number 3. Roquan gets capped, meaning he gets his heels to the depth he wants to be at, and then visually identifies where Caleb Williams is looking. I love the fact that he's willing to look out towards the 3 receiver side. So as he's working up from the line of scrimmage, this is the best way to do this if you ask me. If you're mugged up, you got to turn your back a little bit. Get your eyes to the outside. Also keep in mind, these guys study film like maniacs, right? So it's very possible that he knew and multiple players knew the route structure, what they were probably going to see. And so he wants to look at a particular key. Usually it's inside out, so this would be 3 to 2. He'd be the new 2 after motion, with that guy taking over as the number 1. I have no idea what exactly they're reading on this particular play because I'm not involved at all, obviously, in the scouting or the game plan, but I think it's just a nice illustration of how Roquan is playing against the pass, particularly on a 3rd down from our dime look. Some more work against the pass. This is a 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter. Game is essentially over here, but Roquan could have absolutely sealed it with this one. It's going to be a man-free structure for the Ravens against 3 to the boundary. So running back, tight end, and a second running back, in fact, Achane, set to the boundary. So they've pushed 3 receivers into the boundary. Oftentimes you'll get a shift or some type of push call. But in any case, Roquan is responding to the eyes of Tua, number 1. Number 2, it's definitely man-free because as the running back shoots out into the flats, Buchanan climbs over the top. But we've got a problem. We're not communicated here pre-snap. There definitely appeared to be an attempt by Gilman to get straight with Buchanan on how to handle those 3, with Gilman going with Achane here, Buchanan on the running back, but as you can see, no one on the tight end, if you believe me that this is actually man-free. But in any case, Roquan is playing what he considers to be, or what I would consider to be the low-hole dropper in a man-free structure underneath, and he's going to take over or nearly intercept a ball intended for this receiver. Wiggins was very disconnected in this game. The most difficult film that I've watched of Wiggins this season, to be honest with you. Yes, he got picked or screened here. We clearly have an opportunity to finish this one off for Roquan. It's disappointing. It would add to the stats that the production that he's been able to put up in the last 2 weeks and make it a whole lot easier for someone like me to convince people that he's playing at a really high level. I get it that after the Chiefs game, it was fashionable or in play for Ravens fans to be critical of how Roquan performed. And I absolutely saw him do things against the Chiefs that I've never seen him do before. This, to me, looks like the version of Roquan that we all expect to show up each week. Other than the fact that we just dropped an interception, I should say. So 2 plays, 1 each against the Bears and the Dolphins against screens. I think he's been making timely tackles against screens. I believe there's a 3rd one that may have occurred in the Bears game, but I don't have film of that one. But in any case, essentially you're getting a runoff here by the Bears on a 2nd and 10. Cover 3 look by the Ravens, very balanced reaction by Roquan. Again, we're coming forward and then retreating as Buchanan, so we're putting ourselves out of position from the coverage that we're supposed to be playing. Normally, in a cover 3, you want to be in, generally a flat line there, but it's not always the case. Sometimes the flat defenders are, don't have as much depth. But in any case, Williams is looking to the middle of the field, and that's just a deke. That's just a hold, guys. It's a design screen late to DeAndre Swift. This is a badass football play underneath of the blocking scheme. I do wonder if maybe Thuney could have got out of there a little bit quicker and possibly given Roquan some trash to deal with. But he's been really good at dealing with blocks out in space, as you'll see from the next play that I'll show you against the Dolphins. Great play on a 2nd and 10. Almost went for a tackle for loss. His steps and reactions there's nothing wasted at all. Same play from the end zone angle. Again, motion across the field, and essentially those are going to turn into clear out routes. So you're getting Thuney, the guard, and I believe the center all kind of working out to get in front of Swift. The center takes care of Jenkins. Thuney is a little bit slower, perhaps, and that allows Roquan a huge lane to run onto and fit this up and make the tackle on Swift. A lot of space here if Roquan's unavailable or if Thuney's able to get out to him for Swift to kind of bring this back into the middle of the field. Very similar dynamic occurs here against the Dolphins. Roquan mugged up once again, and I believe we're in our dime look. 3rd and 16, I believe, into the second quarter. Hamilton is going to blitz on a 3rd and 16. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a great idea, but in any case, Awuzie is going to be occupied by this route, and that clears out the boundary. That clears out this whole bottom side of the field. Achane works into that space. I mean, this is there. They've got numbers in terms of 2 offensive linemen out in front. Again, I'm not sure that we necessarily have to be blitzing Hamilton. It's a 5-man rush. We're basically playing a fire zone or a zone blitz. Really, really smooth way that Roquan does this with his left hand. Basically, it's not a huge shot. This isn't a right hook or this isn't a straight right or a left hook. This is really just a touch jab, and all he does is allow that offensive lineman to flow in the direction that he already wanted to go in. I think there's space for Achane. I'm not sure that he's going to, necessarily get the first down. Starks is en route, but you don't want to let a talent like Achane get an open field at all. Same play from the end zone angle. Achane's going to work across pre-snap. Starks and Roquan communicating something. Hamilton going on the blitz. These are the 2 offensive linemen that are going to lead out in front. You can see Hamilton again with the pick stunt. No one on him. He's unable to get to the quarterback in time, even though he gets his arms up, tries to challenge the pass. Great job by Roquan here of using his hand to guide that offensive lineman in the direction he wants to go. He's just playing very calm and balanced, in my opinion, and putting himself in position to make the maximum number of tackles in each given week. I think he's playing at an elite level the last 2 weeks. The 24 tackles, I think, kind of supports that. I'm trying to offer you guys film that does so as well. Roquan's only played 6 games in 2025, one of which, of course, was against the Chiefs. So I think he left that game early. So he's got almost 60 tackles. The fumble return for a touchdown earlier in the season, I think, against the Browns. Not necessarily on pace to get to his 150, 160 tackle milestones or standard that he set over the course of the years. I think these last couple of weeks is about the best version of Roquan that we're going to get. They've been using him on blitzes a little bit more. I'm not sure that that's the best usage for him. However, he is intelligent at it, in my opinion. I think I'd rather see Simpson and or Buchanan involved on some of those blitzes. But A, Buchanan's not going to be on the field on 3rd down, and B, Simpson apparently is not going to be on the field on 1st or 2nd down very much either. So it's a little bit of a quandary if you ask me. I appreciate and think that I recognize and notice the balanced nature that Roquan is bringing to the game right now. Essentially, wherever the ball goes, he will show up, whether it's a run or a pass play. So blitzing him, other than just occupying someone, a guard or a center, I feel like we're almost subtracting a consistent player who can arrive at the football and make a tackle. He's been playing really well the last 2 weeks on the upswing. At the same time that the Ravens' defense is improving, I don't think that that's coincidence. Him and Kyle Hamilton, the 2 biggest factors right now for what Baltimore's been able to get done defensively. Definitely the last 2 weeks, but that we know the trend, the surge, is really the last 3. 39 points allowed against the Rams, Bears, and Dolphins, and I think Roquan, Kyle Hamilton, a huge part of that. You're more than welcome to let me know what your thoughts are on Roquan, his play overall, but as well as the clips that I tried to show you here that are designed, obviously, to illustrate my point. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at Roquan Smith from the last couple of weeks, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.